My advice to someone dealing with dementia is hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Andri. Today's video will probably be an emotional one because whenever I speak about dementia, I find it a very, very emotional topic. Just to give you a brief background of my knowledge of dementia, I cared for my mum while she had dementia. I cared for her in my home. I had to take her away from her home in Cyprus and bring her here so I could look after her. My mother got dementia in her 70s. She died of dementia when she was 78. So I've made a few videos on dementia. I'll have my dementia playlist linked below, but I always have the dementia playlist linked right at the end of my videos. And because of the few videos that I have made, I quite often have people reach out to me for advice about dementia. And I know in my heart of hearts, at that moment when that person reaches out to me, I know that they won't understand the full meaning of caring for somebody with dementia, of seeing their loved one suffering with dementia. Dementia for the carer is an emotional roller coaster. I can't tell you what it feels like to have dementia because my mum could never tell me how it felt, but I could see how much she struggled with it. I could see how awful dementia was for her. I'm not going to dress this up at all. And I'm talking about my mum's dementia. There are so many different types of dementia. You know, some come on really quick. You know, dementia's, there's so many variants of it and they're all put in this box. But basically, it's a disease of the brain, and basically your brain starts shutting down. That's me simplifying it in certain parts, and it depends what part of the brain and all of that. That's not what we're here to discuss. If you've clicked onto this video about dementia, you know all of that. So I brought my mum over here because she was getting quite forgetful and I felt I needed to bring her here for her own safety. I felt I was the only one at this point that could look after my mum. So my dad died years before and my mum was living in Cyprus, in our home in Cyprus, and she had a carer with her. Now, she was a young girl, she was a young Vietnamese girl who my mum brought over from Vietnam to help her look after my dad. And that's kind of the done thing in Cyprus. And when my dad died, we kept her on as company for my mum. And she was supposed to be looking after my mum when I wasn't there. So I brought my mum over here because she was just getting worse. But at this point she was still speaking, you could still have a conversation with her. She was just, at this point, she was just forgetful. So that's the background of my mum and how I ended up looking after her. What advice would I give to somebody? First of all, I would have to say, prepare yourself for the most emotional roller coaster you're ever gonna go on. It's a journey filled with sadness, with pain. It can be frightening. They call it the long goodbye. You're dealing with an incurable disease. you will be emotionally overwhelmed. Saying all that, I've never ever regretted taking on that responsibility. I knew my mum never ever wanted to be put in a home, so I could never do that to my mum. It was very hard, and it's a disease. Well, with my mum's dementia, we went through every stage you can imagine. My mum's dementia was vascular dementia, and you know, the beginning stages of forgetfulness, and then it was, you know, the annoyance stage where, you know, she would do things that would just, you know, simple things that annoyed you. It was like, oh, she's bringing all the cushions out the room, lining them up in the hall. Or she's bringing in the wet washing. Or she's taking the dirty laundry out the basket and putting it away in the drawers. You know, just simple things that would annoy you. It wasn't really a big deal. I'm saying that now as if it wasn't a big deal, but trust me, when you're working and you're dealing with dementia and you're dealing with life and all of that, it becomes quite frustrating. And so we went through that stage. And another thing my mum went through, oh, it used to drive me crazy. She used to pick things out the carpet, constantly picking out the carpet, and she would fill my pots with fluff from the carpet. So it was a thing she did. And you'll find that with people with dementia, they kind of focus on one thing, and you know, it could be fluffing out a cushion, it could be tapping their fingers. You know, my mum's was picking things out the carpet constantly. I mean, I hoover all the time. There was never anything to pick out the carpet. Oh God, we can laugh at these things now. Anyway, the next stage was for me probably the hardest stage in many ways, because she went through a stage where she was frustrated, she was irritable, she was agitated, she would be angry. And I think this was the stage where she couldn't converse with anybody. She probably didn't understand what was happening. She was probably very mixed up at this stage. So she was very frustrated at this stage, and the only way she could show her frustration was through anger. And I found this stage the most difficult stage, because this really wasn't my mum. You know, she would be up and down the stairs and in and out of rooms and banging doors and It was a crazy stage. It's the only way I can describe it. So these are all things you need to be aware of. I'm not saying to you that this is what's going to happen with your loved one. I'm not telling you, because like I've said, everybody's is different. This is what happened with my mum. And then they lose their voice. So she went from maybe being angry and shouting to losing her voice. And for me that was, we said we weren't going to get emotional, people. And for me that was so hard, because she couldn't even say my name anymore. Honestly, the last word I heard from her was my name. And she couldn't even say that anymore. I remember one day, I've probably told this story so many times, but I remember one day I was driving her to one of her hospital appointments. She rarely said anything, and we were just driving away in silence, the two of us. And I'm driving, she's sitting next to me, and I was taking her to her hospital appointment. And as I was driving, she just looked at me and she said, Andri. And I got so excited, because I heard my mum call my name. I hadn't heard that for such a long time. And I was like, I said, Mama, Mama. I was driving, I said, Mama, bed on you. Say it again. I was talking to her in Greek. That was it. It was an instant and she was gone again. And I don't think I ever heard her say another word. Sometimes she would nod. You know, if I asked her a question, quite often I would ask her if she loved me and she would nod. So, honestly, this is why I'm saying to you, it's such an emotional journey. You know, you're up, you're down, your emotions are everywhere. Then comes, for me, the saddest stage of dementia, when they become very quiet, very still. It's almost as if they're not fighting anymore. They're not fighting anymore. They just sit there. The fight's gone. And I wished so much for that fight to come back, as much as I wished for it to go away when it was there. I wished for it even more to come back. I wanted it back. I wanted to see emotion in her eyes again. The emotion had left her eyes. And it's such a hard thing to deal with, because she could never, you never really get to say your proper goodbyes, because when somebody's unwell and they know they're unwell, they can say things to you that, but with dementia it doesn't work like that, because the person doesn't really realise it's happening, or at least that's how my mum's dementia is. I quite often have watched videos with people that have dementia and they're still speaking, and I look at them and I think, you don't look like my mum, or you don't act in the same way my mum acted when she had dementia. And this is why I'm saying to you, there's so many different forms of dementia it takes on. It just depends what part of the brain it hits. So we're going back to that. You need to prepare yourself for all these different emotions. Also, when you're watching videos, it's very easy for people to tell you how to react when your loved one tries to hit you, or when your loved one is shouting at you, or when your loved one spits at you, or when, you know, so many things happen. But that's really easy, you know, for somebody to tell you. Dealing with that situation and with life that's going on at the time, it really isn't that easy. Real life is very different. It's not a textbook. So going back to the advice I would give, so take the help when it's offered to you. You need help. You cannot do this on your own. That was the hardest part for me, was accepting the help. I did it for a long time without help. And it wasn't until I was put in the position that I had to have help, or I wasn't allowed to have my mum at home, that I accepted the help. The help is not always good. The help can sometimes make the situation worse if it's bad help. Once you find good help, the right help, oh my goodness me, it makes an amazing difference. And I found that I had carers in place that were awful to begin with, who ended up leaving because they couldn't cope with my mum. And I then had other carers put in place, and they were an amazing team. We were a team. We were a team with the carers that I had for my mum, and they cared for my mum. When my mum was dying, the two carers, Liz and Diane, They finished their shift, didn't go back to their homes, to their children, to their life. They came back and sat with me and my mum. That's care. That is real care. And it wasn't just Diane and Liz. The whole team were a great team. And they were all in and out. When they realised that my mum was dying. But I never forget moments like that, and I'll never forget Diane and Liz turning up when their shift had finished and they knocked at the door and said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "We've just come to sit with you." We knew this was we knew this was going to end up like this. This is why I've avoided this video for such a long time, because I said in a recent video I still haven't accepted dementia. So back on track. Prepare yourself. Take the help. Okay, I have composed myself. Right, the next thing is be prepared to make changes in your home. You're going to have to change a lot of things in your home. You have to make your home safe for your loved one. In the same way, when you have a child and you put safety locks on cupboards, you put up safety gates, you know, you have to think ahead of what might happen. I even had alarms on all my doors, just in case my mum opened a door and I didn't see her and she went out, I would hear the alarm. I had a pressure mat beside her bed that would alert me when I was sleeping if she got up through the night, for her own safety. I had the gate at her door which would slow her down in coming out so I would hear her. Plus the fact I had to keep the dogs out of her room for their safety as well. So you need to make these changes in your home. You have to secure your home as if you've got a baby in the home. You can't leave things lying around. You know, you have to, like, I had alert systems in the house, so if there was a fire in the house and I wasn't at home, because there was times I had to leave my mum herself, therefore my house was secure, the emergency services would be alerted straight away. I had all of these things in place. So prepare to make big changes in your home. You have to do that for the safety of your loved one. It has to be done. The final one I'm going to say to you is, for as long as you're looking after your loved one, prepare for your life to change, because it will change. In the same way, when you have your children and you're bringing them up, your life basically revolves around your children. Your life will revolve around your loved one that you're caring for, because they can't do anything for themselves. That's how my situation was. My mum couldn't do anything for herself. I had to think for her. I had to know if she was unwell. I had to do it all for her. I was there for my mum in the same way she was there for me. Sometimes dementia, it takes years to be diagnosed. Sometimes it starts really early on and the person's personality starts to change quite early on, and it's really hard for the person's loved ones to accept the changes and accept that it is dementia. I found dementia a very hard thing to accept at the beginning. I thought I was going to cure it, and I couldn't. And for me, it felt like a battle. I don't know if that was a right thing or a wrong thing, but for me it was a battle. The other thing is that I've always said, you know, it's also very frightening when I think back to my mum's disease and what she went through, because I experienced that through my mum, and it terrifies me that I may go through that and I may put that onto my children, my loved ones. It absolutely terrifies me when you've lived with somebody that's got that disease, that horrible, horrible disease. And I don't know, I still haven't accepted it. And I watch people, on one of my recent vlogs I spoke about somebody that has dementia but was still able to speak, was still able to live their life and say, I'm not suffering with dementia, I'm living with dementia. My mum's dementia wasn't like that. It wasn't a dementia you could live with. It was a disease. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible disease. But we had a home with us and I don't regret a minute of it. I don't regret a second of it. I'm so glad I was strong enough to do it, because it takes a lot to be able to do it. And it's not for everyone. You know, but that was the right thing for me to do. The right thing for me to do was to care for my mum. So the final bit of advice I would say is, do the best you can if you're going to look after your loved one. Take care of yourself. Take the help when it's offered, but be prepared. Would I do it all again? Absolutely, I would. Every second of it I would do again. So in January it will be 4 years since my mum passed. If asked, would I have changed anything? Now this is a question I ask myself time and time again. What would I have done differently? Would I have brought her back to Scotland earlier? I couldn't have, because when my mum was aware of what was going on, she wouldn't have come. She had her home in Cyprus. She always said she wanted to be with my dad, near my dad. I'd asked her, I quite often said to come and live with me, and she wouldn't. My mum and I loved each other like nobody could love each other. We were both feisty women as well. We could, let me tell you. You know, mothers, daughters, you know. She had opinions, I had opinions. We didn't always agree, but we were one, my mum and I. And yeah, so would I have changed anything? It's easy to sit here and say I would have done this or I would have done that, but like I said, when you're in that situation, it's not that easy. The only thing you can do is do the best you can in that situation at that time for your loved one and for yourself. So I quite often have questioned myself if I could have done things differently, if I could have been better at what I was doing. But honestly, if I had to be honest, I just did my best. That's all I could have done at the time. I took her to the doctors. I tried to get the best medication for her. I tried to give her the best care. That was all I could do. Did I get angry at times? Yes. Did I get frustrated at times? Yes. But now I think that's just natural. You know, nobody is perfect in this world. Nobody is perfect. So if you're thinking of taking on your loved one, it's not easy, and like I said early on in the video, I'm not going to dress this up for you. It is not easy. You have to be prepared to do it, and you have to want to do it, and you have to really, really love the person to want to take that on. But it's not for everybody, and there's one, you know, there's no point caring for somebody if you're going to resent the fact that you're going to care for them. Don't do it. If you're going to resent it, don't do it. They're better off in a home where there's specialists, where people are trained to take care of them, and you can have a better relationship with that person when you're just visiting them. There is no point. It's not something anybody can do, because it does take a lot to care for somebody with dementia in the home. I hope this video has helped and not put you off caring for your loved ones, because there are a lot of videos out there that dress everything up, and it's very, you know, that kind of chill, do this. People, this is real life we're talking about. It's not about chill, take time out, walk away, take a deep breath. People, honestly, if you can do that, kudos to you. Sometimes I did walk away a lot of times I thought, I can't deal with this, I'm out of here, I'm gonna go and sit under the stairs with Harry Potter. I had many times sitting under my stairs, let me tell you. It was like, under my stairs. Harry Potter and I under the stairs. Anyway, I thought this video was overdue, just to update you on my feelings of dementia. Dementia for me is still a thief. Dementia for me is still a battle, because I'm now fighting